Perhaps you have dealt with a leader who appeared to have all the training and skills on the job, but lacked emotional maturity or spiritual depth. To be an effective leader, one must be well-rounded in all three dimensions. Our growth is also about failure. Everyone who has climbed the leadership ladder knows the agony of defeat and the pain of failure. This is why leaders such as Winston Churchill, Great Britain's colorful prime minister during World War II, was able to excel as a leader during his lifetime. If I may borrow an analogy from the game of baseball, a sport which the United States created and Mexico and Latin America has perfected, if a player only hits 3 out of 10 times at bat, he is considered a great hitter. Likewise, it is not necessary for a leader to always hit singles or home runs. Sometimes we can learn just as much by striking out, but nothing is learned if we fail to step up to the plate with the bat in our hand and face the pitcher. And so the test of any leader, first and foremost, is to have the courage to try. When someone in your organization makes the effort, recognize his or her courage. Do not be so quick to judge their success or failure. Instead, you should applaud their willingness to step up to the plate and take a swing. Recently, Fortune magazine's issue of May 1, 1995, featured the story of Sergio Zyman of Coca-Cola and many other well-known names in business who failed with their products and innovations. You might recall that Sergio Zyman was the marketing man behind Coca-Cola's new Coke product in the mid-1980s. According to Fortune magazine, New Coke was the most disastrous product launch since the Edsel car fiasco by Ford Motor Company in the 1950s. Sergio left Coca-Cola after this humiliating failure, but today, 7 years later, he's back at Coca-Cola as their chief global marketer. Why? Why should a company bring back people who've experienced failure and cost them millions of dollars? The answer, according to Coca-Cola's chief executive officer, Roberto Guazita, is very clear. He says, companies like Coca-Cola must realize that failure is part of the human growth experience. It is part of the leadership development process. The moment you fail to act because of a fear of failure, you will be stalled on the path of inactivity. You can stumble only if you're moving and making progress. I would add that any company which discourages its people from thinking, taking risk, and trying new ideas is a company void of leadership. If you do not have failures, you will never experience success. And part of developing leaders in your company is helping them understand how to take risk and rebound from failure. The fifth characteristic of an effective leader is the ability to love people. When I say love people, I mean you must have compassion for your customers and respect for your employees and suppliers, and most of all, yourself. During the past 5 years, leaders around the world have become more sensitive to the issue of people as an asset in their business. They've come to appreciate the importance of creating a company culture that espouses compassion and understanding for people. Why should respect for people be of concern to companies? Because leaders have come to realize that people are the only asset in a business that has the potential to appreciate over time. Practically every other asset in your business depreciates over time. So loving your people is at the heart of a cultural transformation which is sweeping the world. At the Customer Relations Institute, we refer to this phenomena as customer affection. Let me share with you several ways leaders love their people. First, there is a significant difference between liking your people and loving your people. I define like as the way you feel about someone or something. In other words, I like my job or I like my cat. But I define love as how you treat someone. One way to demonstrate to your people that you love them is through employee recognition events. Progressive companies celebrate the good things their employees do for their internal and external customers. This is an excellent opportunity to communicate the good news to your employees. Another way to show your people that you love them is to invest in them. Companies such as Motorola, IBM, and Xerox budget 3 to 5% of their total payroll for employee training and education. Consider your own training budget. If, in fact, your people are your greatest asset, what are you doing to grow and protect that asset? We need to realize that good people are hard to find, and they are even harder to keep. As one company president told me just recently, he said, "Every employee in this company knows whether or not we like them or love them. And those who feel loved by this company are the ones who will always give 100% to their job. But those who feel undervalued, unappreciated, or unloved, they are the employees whose productivity will suffer and their commitment to success will always be less than what it should be." And then he added, "I don't blame them. I blame myself and the rest of my management team because we are the ones who have created this condition and culture. We're the ones who have told them in so many words that they are not important. And to win them back, we need to tell them on a daily basis that they are truly our greatest asset. They are the reason we are a successful company. They make a difference to our team, and we value them as human beings." Let me conclude this session in two ways. First, I'd like to share with you a beautiful story on the essence of leadership that was first told to me by Wally Amos, who founded Famous Amos chocolate chip cookies. Secondly, I'd like to conclude with a list of leadership attributes that I've compiled over the years with the help of my many clients and colleagues at the Customer Relations Institute. The story is about an old fisherman who was walking along a beautiful Spanish beach early one morning just before dawn. Ahead in the gray morning mist, the old fisherman could see what appeared to be a dancer moving rhythmically back and forth from the sandy shore towards the ocean waves. But as the old fisherman drew closer, he could see that the dancer was, in fact, a young man. And so he asked, "Excuse me, but what are you doing?" The young man turned around and said, "I'm trying to get these stranded starfish back into the ocean before the sun rises, or they're all going to die." With that, the arrogant old man, who considered himself to be very wise and knew much about the lessons of life, he exclaimed, "You can't be serious. There must be thousands and thousands of stranded starfish along hundreds of miles of beautiful Spanish beaches. What difference can your efforts possibly make?" To this, the young man, he bent down and he picked up a beautiful starfish, and with a sense of commitment and compassion and love, he threw the stranded starfish safely back into the ocean beyond the breaking waves. But then he turned to the old fisherman and he said softly, "It makes a difference to this one." The starfish story symbolizes many things to me, but one of its valuable lessons relates to leadership. Like so many great leaders, the young man was about making a difference. He realized that his mission was not to save every starfish stranded along the beach, but rather his mission was to save as many as he could. And like other effective leaders, the young man understood that his actions must be driven by a higher degree of commitment and compassion and love for others. Unfortunately, the old fisherman who made his living from the sea never learned these leadership lessons. He saw no point in trying to save a few stranded starfish, nor did he want to encourage others to assume a leadership role and make a difference. As we conclude this portion of the program, I want to leave you with 10 attributes that every effective leader possesses. Take a moment to reflect on these attributes and ask yourself, am I that type of leader? A leader supports his people. A leader has the courage to do the right thing. A leader challenges his people to stretch themselves. A leader listens first with compassion and without prejudging what is said. A leader celebrates the good work of his people. A leader gives credit where credit is due. A leader shares his vision so it becomes everybody's vision. A leader admits his mistakes and encourages his people to fail forward. A leader learns well and teaches others what he has learned. A leader encourages creative solutions and extraordinary effort from his people. I hope each of you will find the leader within. Thank you very much.
Let's begin the first question and answer session. We will try to answer as many questions as possible. Therefore, we ask that only one question be asked per phone call and that these questions be as brief as possible. You may please lower the volume of your receivers when you're talking directly on the phone. You may call the studio directly at the phone numbers or fax which now appear on your screen. First question is coming to us from the Polytechnical School at the University of Sao Paulo. To be successful in the delegation of responsibilities, wouldn't it be important to have in place an ongoing program in continuing education for office professionals?
Yes, it would. I think that's an excellent point. And I think if you take the model of what some of the most progressive American companies are doing, that's my frame of reference, I would suggest that you try to establish as a benchmark 3% of your total payroll budget for continuing education purposes. In other words, realize that your people are the greatest asset and that in order to grow the organization, you need to make an ongoing investment in your people. And lastly, I would say that you want to make sure that the training that you offer, that is for professional development, that the training is relevant to their needs, that it grows people as professionals in the organization.
In this international coverage after Venezuela, now we're going to Panama. This is from the Technological University in Panama. Welcome. Good morning. The question is, the situation of the human resources varies significantly between in the third world countries and the developed countries. In Latin America, where we have a great gap, both social and educational, between the employees and the owners and managers of the enterprises, how can you implement this leadership model that you're proposing in our place, where we have a sort of a condescending attitude?
Well, I'm not sure that you're alone. I think that's endemic globally, that there is this gap between leaders and or owners and non-owners, employees in an organization. I think specifically, though, what you want to try to do, depending on your level in the organization, and obviously the higher up you are in an organization, the more influence you can have. But the challenge is to remember what the goal of an owner or an officer of a corporation is. And that goal is to grow the value, the stock, the worth of an organization. To achieve that, the owner must invest in people, because it's people that produce the products that create the results. And I think there is an awakening globally. It's certainly not just in the United States or in Japan or in Germany, but I think it's throughout Mexico, Latin America, it's global, that people are your greatest resource, and if you truly want to grow the organization or improve your government or your service, you have to do that through people. You must close that gap. You must educate your people so that they can perform at a higher level.
Now we have another phone call coming from Mexico, and this is coming from the Technological Institute from Apatzingan in Michoacán, Mexico.
Adelante. Sí, la escuchamos.
My question is, in our region, in Apatzingan, as in the rest of the country, we have countless small organizations which form the basis of the economy. As an educational institution, how do you think we can focus or be geared toward them in order to contribute to a rapid change in the tradition, and to change the traditional leadership? And what would be our role in this change, in contributing to this change?
Well, first of all, there's a international trend towards small business. I think that the old adage of bigger is better is no longer true. So what you're really talking about here is the entrepreneurial spirit. And my feeling with respect to entrepreneurism is that small business is going to be the lifeblood of the global economy for the next decade, that there will be many more small businesses than there will be larger businesses being created. So the role of the entrepreneur is extremely important. And specifically, what is the role of the entrepreneur as a leader? Number one, it's to create the vision. Secondly, it's to communicate that vision out to the people so that they understand their role in the organization. And thirdly, the entrepreneur or small business owner is an innovator. He or she is a creative type person. So we have to give them the opportunity to create their products and services and bring them to market. I think this is where the future source of leadership really will be in the 21st century, in the small businesses.
La siguiente participación viene del Instituto Tecnológico.
This one is coming from Acapulco, Mexico, Technological Institute.
Sí, buenos
Good morning. My name is Saul Flores. Mexico is going through one of the greatest crises in history. What does a leader have to do when his enterprise is faced with very high market interest rates and depression and all the economic situation that Mexico is going through right now?
I would say that there are two things. Number one, you have to survive, and secondly, you have to persevere. One of the difficulties of being a business leader, and certainly a leader in government, is that there are going to be conditions, market conditions, economic conditions that are beyond your control. And so you have to be able to position your organization in such a way that you are sized properly to compete in the marketplace. But secondly, as a leader, I think it's very important that you keep up the morale and the hope of your people so that they do not lose their spirit and that they continue to devote 100% to the growth and health of that company. It's a very difficult situation in Mexico, but I think you need to go through that type of a situation in order to be right-sized to do business in the 21st century. It's a very difficult challenge in Mexico.
La siguiente llamada telefónica nos llega de la Universidad Iberoamericana.
This one is coming from the Iberoamericana Campus, León, Guanajuato, University Guanajuato, León, Mexico. Good morning. Our question is, the traditional administrators or managers always focus on the bureaucratic controls. On the other hand, what would be viable strategies to follow up and control that a true leader should have?
Well, in every organization, you will have what I refer to as policies, procedures, and rules. Now, the job of a leader, and especially the entrepreneur, is to find ways to legally break the rules and to eliminate policies and procedures that stand in the way of the organization achieving results. So when you talk about the traditional organization and the traditional role of a manager or a leader, I think that's changing. And what we're trying to do is move away from the old way of doing things and embrace a more productive, results-oriented leadership method in organizations. My experience has been globally that the organizations that can make that transformation from the old way to the new way of leading are the successful companies of the future.
Otra pregunta en vivo, por teléfono directamente de la Comisión Federal de Electricidad, SECAP, México.
This one comes from SECAP, Mexico, Federal District, Federal Commission of Electricity. Good morning. Could you explain to us the difference between urgent and important?
The difference between urgent and important. I think the best way to distinguish between urgent and important is it's important to satisfy the needs of your customers. But if you have a shipment to a customer that was sent out wrong, it's urgent that you fix that shipment and get the order right. So urgent requires a greater sense of priority, and also what happens when you create a sense of urgency, it takes precedent over those things that are important to the success of your organization on a day-in, day-out basis.
Desde Guadalajara, Jalisco, llega
From
la
Guadalajara,
siguiente
Jalisco,
llamada
we have
telefónica
another
con una
phone
pregunta del
call,
Centro de Estudios
and this
Universitarios
is
Veracruz.
from
Escuchamos.
Veracruz University.
Lawrence
Lawrence Miller talks about 7 types of leadership. How do you achieve transition between between all these stages?
I think leadership is a natural development process. You and I are different as people, so my leadership style is going to be dictated by really 2 conditions: who I am, and secondly, the situation that I am involved in, the particular business or predicament that I happen to be dealing with, problem that I happen to be dealing with. I don't think it's a matter of trying to be all things to all people. Nobody can be. It's more important to be yourself. It's also important to embrace that leadership style that works for you.
Continuamos con nuestro cubrimiento internacional.
We continue our international coverage. From Mexico, we're going all the way to Argentina. And this question is coming from the university in Córdoba.
Córdoba, adelante.
Desde Córdoba recibimos con mucho impacto
We are very much